to. And now we have a special chant that we are going to, you're welcome to join in if you wish. And this, of course, is the second teaching of the Buddha, recorded teaching. I think he must have done quite a bit of teaching in between these first three major teachings, but this is the second one, and it's a very powerful one, because after hearing this, his 5 former companions, spiritual companions, became fully enlightened. So watch out. We'll see how it goes. There we are. So we can do this together. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. There the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus of the group of 5 thus. Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said to this, Bhikkhu's form is non-self, for if Bhikkhu's form were self, this form would not lead to affliction, and it would be possible to have it of form. Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. But because form is non-self, form leads to affliction, and it is not possible to have it of form. Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. Feeling is non-self, perception is non-self, volitional formations are non-self, consciousness is non-self, for if bhikkhus consciousness were self, this consciousness would not lead to affliction, and it would be possible to have it of consciousness. Let my consciousness be thus, let my consciousness not be thus. But because consciousness is non-self, consciousness leads to affliction, and it is not possible to have it of consciousness. Let my consciousness be thus, let my consciousness not be thus. What do you think, bhikkhus? Is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Is feeling permanent or impermanent? Is perception permanent or impermanent? Are volitional formations permanent or impermanent? Is consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Therefore, bhikkhus, any kind of form whatsoever, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all form should be seen as it really is, with correct wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Any kind of feeling whatsoever, any kind of perception whatsoever, any kind of volitional formations whatsoever, any kind of consciousness whatsoever, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all consciousness should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom, thus, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Seeing thus, bhikkhus, the instructed noble disciple experiences revulsion towards form, revulsion towards feeling, revulsion towards perception, revulsion towards volitional formations, revulsion towards consciousness. Experiencing revulsion, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge. It's liberated. And destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. That is what the Blessed One said. Elated, those bhikkhus delighted in the Blessed One's statement. And while this discourse was being spoken, the minds of the bhikkhus of the group of 5 were liberated from the taints by non-clinging. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So that's the special chanting for today. And why are we doing the special chanting now? Because we had the first teaching of the Buddha, didn't we, last month from Ayurupeka, and on the 6th of July. And of course that first teaching was setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma. And this was the introduction to this group of 5 former companions of the teachings that the newly awakened Buddha had realized for himself. But of course, as you probably remember, or I'm sure Ayurupeka mentioned, they were very difficult to persuade that he had become fully awakened, because as you remember, before they had abandoned him after he had started eating solid food. So they thought he had lost the plot. He had reverted to luxury. This is always a funny term. He's eating milk rice, and that's reverting to luxury. Anyway, because he realized, of course, that because he was almost on death's door, and his mind realized that this is not the way to enlightenment. These very tough practices of starving the body, all these other tough practices that we have to endure. And he realized that really the meditation, this deep meditation, was the way. But being very weak, he had to eat again to build up his strength, so he could attain those deep meditations that he remembered having experienced, at least the first one, the first jhana, when he was a boy of 11. So he already had a track record. So when he arrived at the deer park to teach these group of 5, they saw him coming in the distance. They thought, well, let's not give him any special treatment. Of course, we'll allow him to sit down. And when he approached, they couldn't help themselves, of course. They got up and they took his bowl and robe, and they had some water for him to wash his feet, and then a place for him to sit down. And then, of course, he gave the teaching of the Four Nobles. He said, actually, he gave the teaching of the Middle Way. And this is the teaching where he's introduced them to what he had awakened to. Very interestingly, Ajahn Brahm in his most recent sutta class pointed out this was a really good way to actually introduce them. Because what we are used to hearing, we hear the Four Noble Truths, we hear the Noble Eightfold Path. They had never heard it before. Can you imagine? there's so much explanation to do. And so the Buddha would have unpacked, he gave that first teaching, the middle way, to introduce them to the Noble Eightfold Path, because that is the middle way between tormenting the body, which these five were doing, and indulging the body, which the Bodhisattva, the Buddha-to-be, had been enjoying when he lived in the home life, in the palace. So then he gave that teaching to explain the Four Noble Truths. And after teaching that, of course, one of them, Anya Kandanya, Venerable Kandanya, became a stream enterer, not fully enlightened, the first stage of enlightenment. And only then, when he became a stream enterer, did he request for ordination, to become a monk under the Buddha. Other four, no. they waited. And then in the next week, over the next the next two became a stream enterer. Then they asked for ordination. And then a little bit later, within about a week to 10 days, the last two became enlightened. So all five achieved stream entry. And then a few days after that had passed, probably about 10 days after the first teaching, then the Buddha gave this teaching, the Anattalakkhana Sutta. And this is the one that really changed it completely for them. They were stream enterers, that's the first stage of enlightenment. But after hearing this teaching, they became fully enlightened, fully awakened. I'll have to look around the audience. I hope there's a few here. No, so that's the power of this teaching. So this Anattalakkhana Sutta is a very, very powerful sutta, and I'll go through it and give you a little bit of a commentary really on it, because you've chanted it. And you know, when I was chanting that, I was thinking, if people were new to Buddhism, were coming today for the first time, can you imagine how they would hear this teaching? It would just be unbelievable. This is a spiritual teaching, and it breaks down the states of the mind, and the body and the mind in such detail, and it's almost scientific, isn't it? It's really like some sort of formula. It's quite extraordinary. So it should, for someone hearing it for the first time, it should alert them to the fact, gee, this Buddha must have been an extraordinary person. I might not understand what he taught, but I can see that it's a very different way to look at the spiritual life. So this is a very important teaching. Why is this Anattalakkhana, this characteristic of non-self, so important, do you think? And of course, it's one of the things, it's very obvious. What do you think the big troublemaker in the world is for us and for others? This ego, this sense of self, is really the big troublemaker that really causes all the grief not all the grief, but a lot of the grief that we experience. Of course, the body will be subject to old age, sickness and death. That's normal. And there will be pleasant and unpleasant feelings. That's normal. But the trouble that we encounter with this ego, that we've got to prove ourselves, we've got to protect ourselves, we judge ourselves, we judge others, we compare ourselves, all these things, and we can feel, this ego, we're pretty used to it, that everybody that's not enlightened sort of experiences or feels, but can't quite pinpoint. And so the Buddha is actually showing us that in actual fact, this idea, this feeling of self, atta, is not real. It is an illusion. And this is good news for all of us. Some people may think, oh no, hang on, I'm losing something, this sense of self. And I think of a very good story that I like. It's a Nasrudin story, so people usually, they wake up when they hear the word Nasrudin, actually. Nasruddin was a Sufi teacher in Turkey, yeah, and probably about the 12th century or 13th century. But there's a whole body of these stories which I'm sure he couldn't have told all of them. They've just grown up, I'm sure. And this story was one evening, Nasruddin was upstairs in his house and his wife was downstairs, and she heard this almighty crash upstairs. And she rushed up the stairs. "You all right here? You okay?" And she came, and he said, "Oh, it's all right." He said, "My coat fell on the floor." He said, "Your coat fell on the floor? Why did it make such a big sound, a thump?" And Nasruddin said, "I was in it." And that's when the I is in it, that we have this big thump. Life, we have conflicts, we have all these things that we experience due to this idea of self. It leads to so much unnecessary suffering because we take this to be us, ourselves, these bodies, these minds, the various aspects of the mind. And of course, these egos really give us a lot of suffering, in life. So this is very important teaching for that very reason, So this is, and of course the reason for this teaching before I started is that unless we see through this idea of a self, experientially, when we say see, it's more experientially, this view that there's an I, me, and myself in here. Unless we see through that, we haven't even started. That's the breakthrough to the first stage of enlightenment, stream entry, sotapanna, or so on. So this is so crucial, and it's really then the Buddha calls the path, once we have attained the first stage of enlightenment, that we're in training. Before that, we're not even in training. So this breakthrough to seeing through this view of a self is very, very important. And it allows also us to verify, and this is another thing that the first stage of enlightenment does. Yes, the Buddha was truly enlightened. Yes, these four noble truths that he talked about, this dependent origination that he talked about, I have seen for myself. So there's no doubt in the Buddha's enlightenment for somebody who has reached that first stage of enlightenment, no doubt about the teachings that he taught, and then also by inference, no doubt about the Sangha, those monks and nuns and lay people who have realised the teaching. So this is the real importance for a stream enterer, and the qualification, the entry for stream entry, of course, is seeing three things, only three things really. Anicca, this impermanence; dukkha, the suffering or unsatisfactoriness; and the third one, having seen non-self, seeing that this mind and body are a process, not driven by an I, me, and myself. So that's what the background, why the Anattalakkhana Sutta, why this characteristic of non-self is so important, because it was their breakthrough to the Dhamma. And of course, you may think, well, Anya Kandanya had already, he saw it after the first teaching, but he didn't see it to the depth which enabled him to become an arahant after this teaching. So of course this is at the deer park again. And for those, maybe some here who were with me on pilgrimage last year, we went to the deer park in Sarnath near Varanasi, or Varanasi, we saw it on the slide, Varanasi. And we went and we chanted actually not this teaching, the setting in motion of the wheel of Dhamma, the first teaching that the Buddha gave, in front of the Ek Dhamma stupa. It's really the only big stupa there at that park, but it's very impressive stupa. So very good too. And this is where they say the Buddha actually gave this teaching, the characteristic of non-self. So if you haven't been to India and seen the holy site, please do go. It's well worth it to see that. see the places where the Buddha gave these teachings, because somehow it really comes home and it really gives you the atmosphere of the place, actually, connection with the place. So this is the, and as I say, it's the second teaching of the Buddha. And of course, when the Buddha's talking about form is non-self, and that if form were self, this form should not lead to affliction. And it should be possible, if it were us, that we should be able to say, let my form be thus and let my form not be thus. But because it is non-self, we can't do that. Now, for some people who haven't heard this teaching before, they might think, what's this form business? Is this something we fill in? Or something like that, because in English, of course, it can have many different meanings. And of course, form is all material things. And what's the most dear or the most immediate material thing to us, for us, is the body. So it largely refers to body. And of course, we can take this body as belonging to ourselves. That's what most people would take. Or you can take it as, this is myself. I think most people think, well, no, it's not really myself, but it belongs to myself in that sense. And so this is one of the things that the Buddha said, that there's this world is empty. And what is it empty of? A self and what belongs to a self. So this body, even this, is not ourselves. And it's strange because he uses the simile, he uses the example, he uses is foam. This is like foam on the river. You know, all these little bubbles that join together and then they break up as it travels along the river. And this is like our bodies. Insubstantial, that's the idea really, and breaking up as it goes along. So another example he might have used is ice, isn't it? Ice melting away. And that's the nature of our bodies. It shows the impermanence that's involved with it, the breaking down of it, and also that insubstantial nature, that it's just foam, there's nothing there really, is really nothing there of the self in this body. But other material things too. Plenty of people will take their possessions, won't they, to be sort of like, it's me, isn't it really? It's me. These clothes I wear, you know, the hairstyle I have, the car I drive, the home I live in. All these material things are other aspects of, you know, how we can express this sense of self. And so this is where this material aspect is involved. And we can take so many things to be self or belonging to a self. So this is, and that reminds me of another Nasrudin story. I wonder if I can have time to get through this. Probably not. When one day Nasrudin was travelling along a country road and he saw something shining in the ditch. And he thought, oh, what's that? And he went over and it was a piece of metal that was polished as a mirror. And he picked it up and he looked at it. Oh, ugh! And he threw it back into the ditch. And he said, no wonder they threw it away. It wasn't his image of what he was. He thought it was a mirror. It's not really him. So there we are. And of course, it's very important to look at why the Buddha is saying this is not self. He says, if it were this body and all the aspects of the mind were self, they wouldn't lead to affliction. This word affliction, it means it wouldn't lead to hurt or harm or pain. In essence, it wouldn't lead to dukkha. And of course, it's very obvious that this body does lead to pain, suffering. It's also a vehicle for experience, you know, through the five senses. But with this body comes, doesn't it? When we're born, what comes with it is sickness from time to time, old age, and eventually that body passing away. And so this is the nature of the body, of course. And of course, you just think of how people say, well, I don't take this body to be myself. And then they're going in for testing for some potential disease. And wow, then you can see the fear coming up. Then you can see the attachment to this body. Sometimes intellectually we can say, oh no, I'm not attached. But when we have something like that come up, or a diagnosis that we've got a cancer or whatever it be, then we can see that grasping at this body, and we can see that, yes, there is a sense of self attaching to that body. This is my body. And also, one of the things that's very obvious is the appearance of the body is so important, isn't it? If somebody says to us, actually, sometimes you can be very polite and say, oh, you're looking very well. I remember saying that to a monk. I said, oh yeah, we're looking very well. And he said to me, no, you mean I'm fat. But if you say to somebody, oh, you're looking fat, they will be so upset, usually, if they're not a practitioner. So this sense of image, this identification with the body is huge. And we shouldn't overlook it, really. So it does lead to this harm, this hurting, this dukkha, this suffering, this affliction. And of course, then we can ask, well, can you say of the body, be like this, don't be like that? And to a certain extent, you can change the colour of your hair, of course. You can have cosmetic surgery in various parts of the body. You can even have a sex change and all this. But it's still within limits, isn't it? It still means that this body it cannot not die. It will still become sick. It will still become old. So this is a really important basis for seeing that this body is not ours, that it leads to trouble, it leads to problems, and we can't control it. And so this is a teaching which I encountered, which is really relevant to us. It's very, very practical, because if we know about this, then it alerts us to it. We can see this attachment. Most people don't see it. And it reminds me of a teaching from Ajahn Chah, a couple of teachings really. And he said, if this body could talk, it would be telling us all day long, you're not my owner, Actually, it's telling it to us all the time. But, he says, it's in Dhamma language, so we are unable to understand it. Yes, it's telling us, this body, you don't own me, you don't own me. And while young people may think, I can do what I like with this body, within limits really, as you get older you realise that this is very, very true, that you're not the owner in the sense that you can't do all the things that you used to do. And it's really the wisdom that accepts that this body is aging, this body is not oneself. And so this teaching about no owner, that we don't own this body. When I was in Thailand in the early 2000s, it's probably 2001, maybe 2005, I was at the International Monastery for men who wish to ordain in the Ajahn Chah tradition, Wat Pananachat. And I was seeing all these people wearing T-shirts, quite a few people wearing T-shirts, and it had written in English, no owner. I thought, wow, that's a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, I twigged to it what it's talking about, I sort of gathered, but it was really interesting. I thought, I wonder if they understand what they're wearing, these T-shirts that they had. So there's no owner. It was referring to this fact that there isn't a self that's owning this body. This body doesn't belong to a self, and that's just an illusion. And of course, if we really were there, if we really had were the owners, we would have control over the body. So we could say, may my body not be like this. I want to be really thin, beautiful. And may my body not be like that, whatever it be, overweight, old, whatever it is. But of course, if we look at the body, we can see that we are not running this body. The body is running by itself, as it were. You may say it's the brain running it, but I can ask you, who's doing the breathing? We're all breathing now? Anyone not? Or get the ambulance. And are we doing the breathing? Some people try to do the breathing. Yes, that's tough. When they come to this breath meditation, they try to do it and they say, oh, it's just so, can't do it. It gets very awkward. It feels uncomfortable. And of course, because they're interfering with the natural process. And of course, the breathing happens while we're sleeping too, doesn't it? So, look, I think somebody's not. Somebody okay? Looks like there's some. Yeah? All right, that's it. I thought they might. There we are. Have a seat. That's good. So we realise we're not actually running this body. We're not breathing. We're not pumping the blood. We're not putting all the digestive substances into the stomach, and we're not injecting all the hormones at the right time. When you think about it, the body is a very complex organism, but it really points to the fact that it is non-self. Because sometimes people get very theoretical about non-self and into concepts and everything, but this is really pointing to non-self. Every moment of the day, really, it is pointing to it. And also, I would ask everyone here, did you get an owner's manual with the body? Did you get an owner's manual? I didn't either. They didn't even say it was in the mail. So this is a very, very important teaching. And then Ajahn Chah mentions this again, and I like this quote too because it ties up with a theme that's very important for us. If our body really belonged to us, it would obey our commands. This is what this teaching is saying. And of course, if we say, don't get old, or I forbid you to get sick, does it obey us? No, it takes no notice. And then he says, this is very good, we only rent this house, not own it. If we think it does belong to us, we will suffer when we have to leave the house. But in reality, there is no such thing as a permanent self, nothing unchanging or solid that we can hold on to. So that's a lovely teaching, isn't it? That we're living in rented premises. And that's actually a good way to look at the body, so we don't take it so personally. If we own a house, it's somewhat different, isn't it, to if we're renting or leasing a house or a home. And so we can see that we can use that home in a good way, and presumably, or hopefully, we wouldn't trash it because it's we're living there. And so this is a good way to live life, so that we are not going to put all our energy, all our resources into making this home, the body, this dream home. We won't spend our time doing that. We'll spend our time developing the good qualities, developing the mind, what's within the home, the mind in good qualities, developing it in wisdom, developing it in meditation, and, if possible, taking it all the way to enlightenment. So this is the body, and of course, the same applies to the mind. I'll go through it a little bit more in detail. Oh, not much time. And of course, with the mind, it's the same. If we were the owners, if the mind did belong to us, surely we'd have some control. And I think most people, if we reflect for a little while, not long, we can see We cannot. If we're thinking something, if thought is happening, often we can't stop it. We can't stop it. Sometimes you see thought really take off and it just runs by itself. We're sick of it, but we can't stop that thinking happening. And the more we try, the faster it goes, the more it continues. And the same for the feelings, the emotions that we experience. Who wants to be bored? Who wants to be depressed? Who wants to be anxious? If we were the owners, if we had control, we'd say, don't be like this, don't be like that. We would change it if we had that within our capacity, if this were ourself, or if it did belong to ourselves, which the Buddha says is not the case either. So when we see that with the mind and the body, we realise that the body, it belongs. Its owner really is. What do you think? Ajahn Brahm's always telling us this. It's a part of nature. It's these four elements of earth, water, air and heat. Fire, sometimes they say. And the mind too is part of a process of cause and effect. It's affected by karma, the karma from the past, from previous lives, this life, the previous moment. And in fact, the body too, isn't it, is past karma, it's come from the past. And of course, the mind too is subject to conditioning. And we can see how the mind works through dependent origination. And so this is, and of course the Buddha mentions the other, he breaks the mind down, and I won't go into the full detail. And of course he mentions that that feeling is non-self. And these, of course, are the three feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, and neither unpleasant or pleasant. And this is and they can be from the physical experience or from the mental or spiritual experience, really. These feelings we can't control either. They lead to our affliction when we have painful feelings, unpleasant feelings. We can't necessarily stop that quality of feeling. This is one of the difficulties with experience. That feeling is just there, and we can't hold on to the pleasant feelings. Anyone here only have pleasant feelings? Please let me know if you do. We'll pass the mic over to you. So this is pointing to the fact that these feelings, like the body, lead to affliction. They lead to this difficulty and pain, problems, that they are not within our control. And of course, we are all the time running away from pain as much as possible, running after the pleasant feelings as much as possible, whether they be through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or sometimes thinking. So this is the teaching from the feelings. And the Buddha likened feelings to, what did he liken it to? A raindrop. It drops, it's there for a moment, then gone. And this is like feelings. They come and they go like that we haven't got. Because if we could have control, we would definitely do away with the two feelings. We'd only have one feeling, pleasant. But of course, if we only had one feeling, what would happen with that? Eventually, because there's no contrast, it would probably disappear. We would not be aware of it, perhaps. So this is feeling. And of course, the next one is perception. And this is a very, very important one, because this is driving our world, perception. And it's very interesting, when we see something, hear something, smell something, taste something, touch something, or think something, we think, yeah, that's the way it is. It's really like that. And yet, what does the Buddha call perception? A mirage. So it may not be what we think it is. And how often? Each of us has probably experienced this. We've had perceptions. We've seen people doing things, and we're absolutely sure they're up to no good. And we've worked it out very, very quickly. We've seen it and maybe heard something. We thought, oh yeah, I know what this is about. And then we hear the full story and think, oh, is that all, really? And this is often the case when people are in relationships and they see their partner with somebody else talking. What's going on here? And then they find out, oh, this is an old school friend or something like that. So these perceptions are very, very important for us, and as I say, they're driving our lives, and something we should relate to with caution, because it's a mirage. It may not be the way we think it is, and so this is well worth keeping in mind. So, for instance, if we one of the things that we can have is like somebody doesn't return an email we have. And then we start to think, oh, maybe they're upset with me. Maybe they don't like me anymore. Maybe it's what I said last week. And then these new feelings come up with those perceptions. And this keeps building within itself. And the Buddha calls this the way our minds proliferate. They just get out of control due to these perceptions. And he calls these, very interesting, these perceptions for someone who's not enlightened. What does he call them? He calls them distorted, because they're distorted by the defilements. They're distorted by this sense, the defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, distorted by this sense of self. And so this is what is an unenlightened person will experience. And the next one, as mentioned, volitional formations. For those who are new to Buddhism, it's a mouthful, isn't it? Volitional formations. And of course, I think it's really not, this is sankharas. I call it intentional activities. Ajahn Brahm calls it will, or the doer. It's that capacity of the mind to react to experience. This is really what it is. And this is where this wanting or craving is coming from, this intentional activity. And of course, all the intentional activity we do is making what? Karma. Good karma or bad karma. And so this is a really important area for us. It's also where the sense of the controller is. The controller, the one who chooses, the owner, the agent, all this is in this intentional activities. This is really important. This is where most people identify with. So we see, you can see some people, the whole sense of being is about doing, achieving things, and there is a sense of satisfaction in it, but you can see how they're so identified with it that if they're not doing, they're very unhappy. And they don't feel complete. They don't feel that things are going the way they should. So doing is something that is really can be something we really identify with. We take as a self the sense of doing, being the one who chooses, all these things. And so this is something the Buddha says is non-self. And in actual fact, when you see all this doing, what do you realise? You realise there's no end to it. You can drop in your tracks. You'll still be doing forever and ever. The doing is an expression of wanting and craving. It's being driven. And in actual fact, the doing, like craving, like wanting, is like a slave driver. Keep doing, keep doing. And so this is a very an area that where the sense of self really can be seen. And of course, we can see the affliction, the problems, the difficulties, the suffering that all this doing creates for us, and the weariness, the tiredness. And the thing is, we cannot really make it the way we want. We're often in this world trying to make everything the way we want it. And it never quite like that. Anybody here that's a builder, I know a few builders, and really, wow. I mean, just work, when you build, you work with imperfection all the time. Oh, it's not the right size screws or the right size wood, or this is not right, that's not right. So this is the nature of the experience, really. And so the Buddha says it is non-self. And so he likened intentional activities to the plantain tree. This is like a banana type tree, because when you the actual stem, when you open it, there's no core inside. There's nothing solid. There is no self. So all these images the Buddha is using are to emphasize that there isn't a self in that process. And it's like a state of mind. This doing becomes a state of mind that just drives us. We've got to do until, you usually say shop until you drop, but it's probably do until you drop. So there we are. And so this is a very important area, actually. And of course the last one we often is consciousness. So we've got to wind up, good. Consciousness is that quality of knowing, that quality to know. But of course, the Buddha being the Buddha, he really broke it down. He analysed it. Because when you break things down into their parts, it's very hard to get that sense of a self, which only really comes with the wholeness, with the compactness of, say, a body. You can only say it's a body if the parts are all separated. You couldn't call it a body. Same with a vehicle. If the vehicle is all broken up into parts, it's no longer a car, a truck, or a bus, whatever it is. And so this sense of knowing, experiencing the world through knowing, is a place where we often get this sense of that we are the owners. This is me. I am the one experiencing. But when we see, yes, actually this knowing is actually 6 types of knowing. It is the knowing of the mind, the knowing that is associated with seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. And the Buddha says these are all 6 different types of knowing. And so this is where people often associate with the sense of self. And of course, the mind, the sense of knowing is not permanent. There's not always a knowing in the mind. When we're experiencing sight, when you're hearing me, you are, as it were, this is the process the Buddha says, where you see the sight, the mind recognizes what that is, sanya, perception, and then the next sense consciousness, the next knowing that comes up might be the sound. And then the mind can interpret that. So it's going backwards and forth at an incredible rate. And so when we see this, we realise that the mind, the knowing, the consciousness is also non-self. And there's not one particular consciousness, not one grand consciousness, not a cosmic consciousness, that idea. This is what the Buddha is avoiding. And of course the other qualities that the Buddha is talking about that qualify something as non-self is that if something is impermanent, how can it be a self? Because the sense of a self should be something that's here all the time, really. If it's permanent, it should be here. But if it's sometimes here and not, it cannot be, by definition, permanent. And he also mentions, of course, that whatever is impermanent, suffering, and is it happiness or suffering? And of course, the Buddha says suffering here. The monks say suffering. And then the bottom line is, of course, is it impermanent, suffering, subject to change? Is it fit to be? This is mine. This I am. This is myself. And they say, no, Venerable Sir. So this is really giving the whole picture of the body and the mind. And of course the Buddha he goes on to mention to us that any form, any feeling, any perception, any intentional activity, any consciousness, no matter whatsoever, if we see it with correct wisdom, if we see it, we understand it, we'll know this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. So this is, and then I just wanted to also give when we chanted it, you might have seen those words where it says, seeing thus, because the instructed noble disciple experienced a revulsion towards form, feeling, perception, and consciousness or knowing. Perception, intentional activities, and knowing. And of course this revulsion is a translation of nibbida. And I just wanted to point out that it doesn't sound very positive, but it is. In fact, revulsion or repulsion is Ajahn Brahm's favourite translation, but not mine. I prefer turning away. Turning away. Bhikkhu Bodhi uses disenchantment. It's when the mind breaks the spell of the five senses, that looking for happiness always through the five senses. It is breaking that spell. And what is breaking that spell is that deep experience of impermanence. And you know some lovely story of that. I've got to wind up. Is I heard of a monk who liked landscaping, Japanese gardens and all that sort of thing. And one day he was travelling in a vehicle and saw this beautiful landscape garden and was thinking, wow, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that great? And before his mind's eye, what happened? He started to see weeds. He saw the little ornamental bridges and ponds overgrown with algae, and the bridge getting broken down, the paint peeling off. And you could see this whole image of what he had first perceived as beautiful in a completely different way, because he'd seen the impermanence of what it is, what it will become in his mind's eye. And it wasn't something, he told me, that he deliberately did. It just happened. It played in the mind. And then after that, of course, it breaks that attachment to, say, the beauty, not only of beautiful gardens, but of all the senses, because this is what's enslaving us, really. All these five sense experiences, it's our world, that's what we know. And so this helps us. So I would say a good translation is when the mind sees like that, it's going to turn away. It just turns away because it knows this is not happiness. And it leads to this quality, viraga, dispassion. We start to become less interested, less looking for happiness out there in the senses, out there in the world. And then it leads to the giving up of this desire, this attachment to the sense experience, and then it leads to peace and to enlightenment. So that's where it's all leading to. I wanted to mention revulsion because some of you probably thought, hang on, am I practicing for revulsion? But it's actually, and when I say it's a positive state, it's a state of happiness, really, real happiness and joy, understanding how things are. And then the Buddha mentions that when the mind is like that, it becomes dispassionate, he says that. And then through this dispassion, this gradual fading away of this addiction to the experience of the five senses through craving, wanting, it becomes liberated. And what becomes liberated? Is it us? No, it's the mind. The mind becomes liberated. And then he says that destroyed or finished or ended is birth, and the spiritual life has been lived. What had to be done has been done, and there is no more for this state of being. And then they all became fully enlightened. So we'll check out as we're going out whether this has happened for you. And I would just as to finish off, because we're getting very late, just encourage people to imagine. It sounds like John Lennon. Not having an ego, not having this self. What difference would it make to your life? And I think we can well imagine that it would lead to a lot more peaceful life, a lot more ease in the mind, ability to see what was going on in the mind. It would lead to a lot more harmony in the world, in ourselves, less self-conflict too. So just imagine what it's like not to have this sense of self running the show as it does, really. So I'd like to just finish there, and let's see, yep. And so this is a leading, if we take this on board, it leads us all the way to enlightenment or awakening. So I'd like to finish there. So sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
Okay. So, question from the floor first.
Any bold proclamations? Hang on.
Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you. Hello, James.
So there's that expression, chop before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
All right. Yes. That's interesting. Yeah. Chop wood, carry water. Yes, I think after enlightenment, it is just that. Before enlightenment, it is, why do I have to chop the wood? Why do I have to draw the water? You know, all this. There's many sides to it. But after enlightenment, it's just that. It's done. You know, it's just the experience without, making a story, without reacting, because there's no negative states of mind to react to what we have to do, what's necessary. An enlightened person will still eat and still breathe, and all these things will still go on as per usual. But the way they relate to it, totally different probably from before. So there we are. Anyway,
thank you.
Thanks for chopping wood and hauling water.
Very necessary at Newbury.
Yeah, especially in these cold days. It's cold here in Melbourne.
Thank you. There's a question from India.
India, right.
Ajahn, while practicing metta, the feeling sometimes suddenly disappears and there is ill will. Would practicing non-self with metta help to overcome this, or what can help?
Oh, that's interesting. A sense of ill will comes up. The challenge then really is to actually bring up that metta for the ill will, have that kindness towards that ill will. This is a mind state this person is experiencing. And so if you can bring up kindness towards even that, these negative mind states need a lot of kindness actually to relax. And when we're tired and grumpy, averse, and there's this ill will in the mind. So that is one way of dealing with it. But of course, I remember, was it Krishnamurti? When he was in India, I saw a little video clip, and they were talking about emptiness. And this person said, "Well, Krishnamurti ji," whatever they called Krishnamurti, they said, "Well, what about loving kindness with this state of emptiness? Does it not work? Because there's this emptiness of everything." And he said, this very interesting comment, he said, emptiness is loving kindness. The sense of not having a self is loving kindness. So you're exactly right. If you have this quality coming from non-self, the loving kindness will be there. But the loving kindness will also be there for any mind states of ill will too. So it will work both ways, yeah. So that was an interesting comment, isn't it? That emptiness is loving kindness. I think it was great. It was really good. So, there we are.
One more question, I think.
Hello, Dr. Jaya.
Thank you, Ajahn, for the beautiful sermon. You said about the body, we refer to as self. That is the way a lot of people first say the body as self.
Yeah.
Never mind the mind. In the process of evolution, the human beings, I'm talking of human beings, have gradually evolved to this state. From one cell to number of cells, from various situations. That is scientific view. In the theory of evolution, and the process of each state of development, there are two things are common. One is there is a need for survival, and survival of the fittest. That is the basic law of study evolution. That's one says. I see that in this our psyche, our DNA, DNA, this view of self is there for protection. It is put into this our DNA scientifically for protection of the being, and the procreation is also in the DNA to serve out the species. So that is the scientific view. It is not really, it is part of the process.
Right.
It is not individual thing.
Yeah.
That's what I see, because that's the way we are still here as human beings.
It's this instinctual, sort of the instinctual aspects.
Yeah, this is scientific view, and we have to connect how we have, even Buddha was a human being.
Exactly.
Then people talk of universal consciousness. Yes, consciousness is universal, but we tapped into it as self. Everybody has the same mindset. That's
Our experience is similar.
That's called universality of the consciousness. So then we connect this to our body, to that situation, and say mind. Then the trouble starts. Suffering starts.
Yes.
You brought that simile of breathing is automatic, it's spontaneous. We are not aware of it. People don't come to the doctor and say, I have asthma or something. They say, I have breathing problem. They come and say there's a breathing problem when they start hyperventilating. They say, no, I have to take a deep breath. I feel that if I don't take a deep breath, I don't survive. So that is called hyperventilation. So that is, you suddenly, you take ownership of this breath.
Interfering.
Then the self comes in, he suffers.
That's a very good example.
That is, I think, from what you said, I just connected that. You see, the suffering starts immediately when you take responsibility as self to breathe. Breathing interfering is spontaneous. Everything. The other thing is, everything in the body, as Buddha says, is constantly changing. Look at microscopically, ultra microscope. Yes, every cell is in motion. Every cell is in motion. There's nothing in static. Everything is motion. Everything is turning things around. So Buddha says, comes. This is. In Buddha's time, there was no microscope or electron microscopes, but he could see it. But now we can see that everything is in motion. There's nothing static there.
Nothing standing still.
Every part of the body is in motion.
Good. That's yes. If we look deeply at our experience of the body and the mind, we can see this impermanence. We can see the difficulties, problems, dukkha, and we can see that it's not really a sense of it's not ours. It's not me. It's not mine. Not myself. That we can see it. We can see it's a process. It's going on, and actually we can have a sense of awe. Wow. Amazing. It's all running like this. Incredible. I keep saying to people, if I had to do the breathing, I would have died years ago. I'd have forgotten. There we are, Michael. Over to you for the announcements. There we are.
Okay, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Things go on. Okay, thank you very much, Ajahn. It's
all right.
A topic we'll keep speculating on, I guess, until we really understand it. I will anyway.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. Somebody may have understood. I'm looking very keenly.
Okay. Just watch out on your way out, everyone.
Yeah.
The eagle eye.
Yeah.
Okay, just to serve the usual announcements, but special one today. Now, I'm kind of really going to refer people through to the newsletter because there's more detail there, but so I'll just read what comes from the newsletter. To mark the birthday of Ajahn Brahm, we invite you to join in the spirit of generosity by supporting the Dhamma Dita project, a visionary initiative aimed at creating a dedicated centre in Sri Lanka for Buddhist women. This future centre will offer a safe and supportive space for women to train, meditate and live in accordance with the original teachings of the Buddha. It's a profound opportunity to nurture the next generation of daughters of the Dhamma. So donations are welcome in honour of Ajahn Brahm's birthday. Is it actually today?
His birthday's on the 7th of August.
7th of August.
So we've got a few more days. Got 5 days? Yeah, 5 days.
So there is a link in the newsletter, and there's a function in Western Australia today at 12:30 WA time, so 2:30 our time. But if you go to the newsletter, should you be home by then? If you want to join in, there's a link there.
And if you haven't got the newsletter, go to the website, because it'll be on the website, the Buddhist Society of Victoria. You can go there, go to the link, and you can watch the proceedings from 2:30.
If you are determined, it will be there for you.
It'll be there.
Okay. So thank you for everyone who's provided lunch, or put their names down on the lunch dana roster. So August is now great. And of course that means we're looking then at September. So just our usual kind of reminder, if you can offer dana either at Newbury or here at Puddaloka, that's very appreciated. Thank you to everyone who was around last week and participated in the Kalyana Mitta Cleaning Day. It really helps to keep the place looking spruce and welcoming for our community. So the next one will be on the last Sunday in August, which is the 31st. Then today, at 12:30, there is the monthly lay discussion led by Dr. Jaya Satish Wimalajiwa. And then also there's the fortnightly Sutta discussion group that will be the coming Saturday. It's online on the Discord platform. That's the 9th of August at 7 p.m. Then this week, Monday night, Ajahn Nissarano will be...
Oh, right, that's it, tomorrow night.
Yep, that's right, tomorrow it comes. And Tuesday will be layperson. Friday night, so that's at 7:30. Friday night at 7 p.m. The Discover Buddhism. It's week 4 of Learn Meditation for a Monk, led by Ajahn Sadaro, and the topic of this one is knowing awareness. And then just a reminder, I don't do this every week, but once a month we remind you that if you wish, Monday to Thursday nights at 7 p.m, you can join online to make meditation a healthy habit. It's a 20-minute monastic, twice a week led guided meditation. And then New Day, New Mind, also for those who would like to get up, a daily meditation group online between 4 to 6:30 a.m. Next week, the Sunday Dharma talk will be Venerable Chikwang Sanim, and the Monday night meditation will be Ajahn Sadaro.
Yep.
And then the second last announcement, if Ajahn does need to lift back to Newbury on Tuesday morning, 7:30, is that right?
8:30.
8:30.
Yeah, 8:30. Yeah.
Time to eat.
8:30.
So if anyone's able to offer that, could they please let him know, or let anyone in the committee know? And the last one, please come and join us for Pindapata and the communal lunch next door.
Next door,
We'll just call on Ajahn to formally close the morning session.
All right, that's great. And next month I will probably give the third, we'll focus on the third teaching of the Buddha. So we do the first teaching, second, and next month third teaching, which is the Discourse on Fire, or the Fire Sermon sometimes it's called. So that'll be next month, all right? And for those who'd like to pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, we can do that.